Good morning and welcome to the Prime Minister's press conference with Ministers of Cabinet. We will begin with the playing of our national anthem, and I'll ask all in audience to please stand.
O land of beauty, our country where peace abounds, thy children rest and free. Our mothers love with a nation bound together with a common destiny. As stalwarts we stand for justice and liberty, with wisdom and truth we will serve and honor thee. No sword nor spear can conquer, for God will sure defend. His blessing shall forever to posterity extend.
Please remain standing as we ask God's blessings on the proceedings. Almighty God, we humbly seek your blessings and guidance as we embark on this press conference. May your wisdom illuminate our words and actions, and may your grace lead the government of St. Kitts and Nevis in serving our nation with honor and integrity. We acknowledge your hand in the progress and prosperity of our nation, and we thank you. We understand that nothing achieved can be done without you. We ask for your continued blessings upon our people and our beloved federation, and give you thanks and praise for your protection over the years. May your blessings continue throughout these proceedings and throughout the day. In your name we pray. Amen. Please be seated. The Honorable Dr. Terrance Drew, Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, National Security, Citizenship and Immigration, Health and Social Security, the Honorable Garth Wilkin, Attorney General and Minister of Justice and Legal Affairs, the Honorable Samuel Duggins, Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries, Marine Resources and Cooperatives, Small Business and Entrepreneurship, Sports and the Economy, the Creative Economy, and Entertainment and the Arts. The Honorable Senator Dr. Joyelle Clark, Minister of Sustainable Development, Environment and Climate Action, and Constituency Empowerment, the Honorable Senator Iseline Phillip, Junior Minister of Youth Empowerment, Social Development, and Gender Affairs, Aging and Disabilities, government officials, members of the media, citizens and residents of St. Kitts and Nevis, good morning and welcome again to the Prime Minister's press conference with Cabinet Ministers. It is always a pleasure to have you here with us. As you will recognize, a few of our ministers are not here with us. The Deputy Prime Minister, Honorable Dr. Jeffrey Hanley, and Honorable Conris Maynard, but they send their apologies as they are abroad doing the nation's work. The Honorable Masha Henderson, as you're well aware, is on medical leave and is recovering nicely. And the Right Honorable Dr. Denzel Douglas is also unable to attend due to some unforeseen circumstances. I am Adelcia Conifer-Lance, the Press Secretary to the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis. This press conference is put on to engage not just the media, but of course, the wider populace to keep you abreast of the developments within the government and to address your concerns. Your government is committed to leading with transparency and integrity and has made a commitment to update you on the decision-making process and the accomplishments within our federation. Your government has been working diligently to ensure that you, the citizens and residents of St. Kitts and Nevis, are empowered and that our federation is advanced through our Sustainable Island State agenda, not just locally, but regionally and internationally as well. And once again, I would like to thank you for joining us and welcome you. And at this point, I also welcome our Prime Minister, Honorable Dr. Terrance Drew, to present his opening statement.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Presec. I want to take this opportunity to say good morning to all of our citizens and residents who are listening by whichever medium they are using at this time. I want to recognize those who are at the head table with me, the Honorable Gad Wilkin, Honorable Samuel Duggins, Honorable Joel Clark, and Honorable Aislinn Phillip. I want to say from the onset that it's always, apart from it being our duty, and we take our duty very seriously, that we consider it indeed a privilege and an honor to come before the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, our people who have these press conferences and to give updates and to be questioned as well. I think that part of our good governance thrust is to make sure that we are responsive, that we are open, that we are available to the press and to the public. And I think that we have been doing as much as possible to make sure that we are responsive to our people. And so I want to say that before I get into it, and I know that the press sec have spoken of Dr. Jeffrey Hanley's honorable, his absence today. He's at the General Conference of UNESCO, which is a major, major conference. And so he has traveled to be a part of this. As you know, UNESCO does a lot of work in St. Kitts and Nevis. So we have to make sure that these relationships are maintained. What I would say with respect to these type of travels is to say to our people that in governance, it requires both local, regional, and international management, meaning that to run a country requires partnerships and important organizations are involved. And therefore, it is incumbent upon us to be present, especially at these very high level meetings, such as this one with UNESCO. I would also like to say that the Honorable Congress Maynard is traveling for the 8th Caribbean Sustainable Energy Forum. And this is also being funded through the Caribbean Development Bank and the Inter-American Development Bank, IDB, the last one, and CDB. Again, we are making these connections as we are seeking to secure also funding to establish our sustainable island state. And part of that is the energy transformation. As you know, energy transformation or renewable energy is one of the pillars in establishing our sustainable island state. And therefore, it is important that this is done. And with respect to the Honorable Marsha Henderson, I want to continue to wish her well. I know that the nation is wishing her well. She is a hard worker, dedicated, competent, and she recently had medical care, surgical intervention, and she is at home recovering. I want to remind our people that within politics, let us not get callous. Let us not become irresponsible and in some instances inhumane. That is not who we are as a people. And when I see some of the things that are going around on Facebook and social media, it seems like people are not sensitive enough or do not care enough. And it is very, very sad. I hope that this is not a trend and this was a one-off. And that is why even during our own campaign, when members of the opposition got sick, I remember we wishing them well, because that is what we should do. Illnesses and sickness will befall all of us, because all of us will die at some point. And therefore, I want to encourage our citizens that irrespective of our politics, let us not lose our humanity. Once we lose our humanity, nothing else makes sense after that. Politics is part of our human existence, and it is supposed to help to better us, not to bring the worst out of us. And so I want to condemn these type of irresponsible statements and that we would have seen on social media. I know this is not the position of most of our citizens, and our, of course, upstanding citizens should join in condemning this low-level politics. However, I'm always reminded that when they go low, we go high. That's a statement that was made by Michelle Obama, and I think it's something that we should all really, really adopt. I also want to say on behalf of the Right Honorable Dr. Zendis Douglas, he's taking some personal time. Each minister is allowed personal time or some vacation time as well. And so this coincide with his time. And so I also want to say with respect to the passing of Mr. Stanley Franks Jr., we want to record our deepest condolences and our support to his family, his friends, and to the country in a whole. As you know, Mr. Franks would have contributed significantly to the development of St. Kitts and Nevis in many, many different areas. I would not list them today because they are extensive, of course, but just to reiterate that we have lost a son of the soil who would have contributed significantly to our development. A number of things that I also want to touch on with respect to the independence reset, just to reiterate that the government did this reset, which really was done to help the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. We recognize that we are possibly the only country in the Western Hemisphere to have done something like this, being post-COVID, a very challenging period for all countries, most countries in the world. We recognize that our people had issues, and that was so because 2 years of COVID really hampered their income status, opportunities. Persons lost jobs. And so as a result of those things, people's bills were piling up. The electricity bill, the water bill, their mortgage, payments on their land. They saw that their savings dwindled significantly. People had to also face the stress of whether they will live or die when COVID was still somewhat mysterious. People had to deal with the stress of being locked down. People had to deal with the stress of taking a vaccine, which they had very little time to psychologically adjust to. People had to deal with the stress of losing their jobs because in some instances, it depended on whether they took a vaccine or not. People could not travel to see their family members. Family members could not visit St. Kitts. In the hospital, we can remember that people were there and could not see their family members, and people died alone during those dark years. And so that has caused tremendous mental stress for the peoples of the world, or the people of the world, rather. We are one people. That is how I see it. And that resulted in the increase of mental illnesses, more depression, more anxiety, We saw in some countries the suicidal rate went up. More persons in the psychiatric ward. Even here in St. Kitts and Nevis, we had an overflow of persons admitted to the psychiatric ward. And this was not only in St. Kitts and Nevis, because I look at the statistics from the United States, and about 50% or more of the adult population reported some mental health issue. And it is the same thing that we suffered here. We saw on the ward at the psychiatric ward, and we saw in different instances. And so we know that the people of the world have been affected very negatively as a result of all the things that I just pointed out and more. Some people had to deal with abuse. Some people did not know where the next meal would come from. This is how serious this is. Humanity went through a very traumatic experience, and our people also went through it. And so to some extent, our people, we are still dealing as a people with the mental stress and what resulted from it. Even persons who are not reporting their mental issues are dealing with them in silence. I'm aware of it. And so we sought, how can we ease the burden from a government perspective for our people? And so the reset was important. Get people back their water supply, the electricity supply. Help them to really deal with their mortgage on their homes so they wouldn't lose their homes or be threatened to lose their homes. Help them to deal with their land issue so they wouldn't lose their land. And on top of that, we gave an independence bonus so that persons can get further ease. What I want to say with all of that is that this government understood all of that and is caring. There are people out there who need more help. Unfortunately, and the reality is, we would like to help more, but part of the experience is that resources are limited. But I know with the reset, we took the sacrifice and we did this revolutionary act to help our people. And so as a result of helping our people, we truly believe that our people are doing much better. I want to say to our people that this was a tremendous sacrifice and we spent a significant amount of money. This is not something that can be done all the time. That is why other countries have not done it, because it is extremely challenging to do. However, this cabinet, myself, we care about our people, and so we did that. And I want to reiterate that we did that. But we did not just stop there at the reset and the bonus of $1,000 to those who, of course, registered with Social Security and would have been contributed for at least 6 months, because we think that these benefits, of course, should have some criteria. It is the right thing to do. But we also went and reduced and gave concessions on building materials so that people can be able to build their homes. That is critical. We also went forward and made sure that the financial institutions would be responsive as a result. In addition to that, we are building homes through the NHC program to help our people. And so all of these significant changes resulted in significant help for all of our people here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And so I want to say to our people that we have done all of this for you. Do we wish we could do more? Always. But are resources limited? Yes, resources would always be limited. But these type of things, which have never been done before, we decided that we needed to do it. So I want to thank the financial institutions that are partnering. For example, the National Bank launched their home mortgage series, which involved a number of groundbreaking initiatives to help our people, whether they want new homes, building materials, and so forth, to help all of our people here in St. Kitts and Nevis and to help to stir the construction sector. That was also done. I want to also say, as I wrap up, as I come to the end, close to the end rather, of my opening statement, the community consultations that we would have had. This is the first time that we have taken the budget on the road in this manner so that our citizens can have a say with respect to what's happening with our budget. As you know, we did one at Marriott where we had the young people. We also did one in Verchilds, Old Road rather, and that was the second one. And the first one we did in Lodge so that people could have come out, meet with those at the Ministry of Finance and throughout the government and have an input in the budget. This is the type of government that we want to run, transparent, open, people-centered, so that people can ask questions. It's not just the members of the press who should have the opportunity to question us. I think our people should have that opportunity as well to be able to ask questions of the ministers, the representatives, and of functionaries as well, because functionaries had to be at those meetings so that the people could ask them the tough questions, so that they can understand better how the government works. And people who make decisions, sometimes they don't see them, so that they can see them, ask the question, and also put forward their own suggestions. And so we took the budget on the road, and we hope that this would continue. We intend to continue it, of course. And so I want to thank my cabinet colleagues, people of St. Kitts and Nevis, and all the civil servants, especially the Ministry of Finance, who were involved. I also want to point out that we had the exciting news of a new airline coming to St. Kitts and Nevis, adding to our fleet that already comes here. JetBlue, as we know, which is coming out of the United States, specifically the New York area, and that is already having an impact in terms of airlift to St. Kitts and Nevis. We expect a 15% increase. From one year to the next, a 15% increase is significant. And I want to thank the Honorable Marsha Henderson and her staff and team, her CEO Tommy, who was much involved, and her PS and so forth, because I think they carried out the mandate when we say we will expand tourism. And part of that expansion is, of course, expanding airlift. And so this season, we'll see United, for example, extending into August. We will see Americans with more flights. We will see Air Canada with more flights. We will see now JetBlue and American Airways. So we are having those international companies flying more into St. Kitts and Nevis. And then from the region, we have recovered significantly to Intercaribbean, to Caribbean Airlines, who I think is Silver Airlines as well. And Lear continues to do their flight, plus other smaller airlines, number of airlines that are already flying into St. Kitts. So we have seen significant recovery in regional travel. We have also seen significant improvement in terms of international travel, and that is in keeping. So this year, I will say from the tourist season, we expect more airlift and we expect more tourists as well. I want to say to our people that there was questions about the number of ships coming. I would say last year we had maybe around 500,000 tourists coming in. Because remember, we opened the latest of all the OECS countries in the Caribbean. Because the former government kept the restrictions beyond May, when it was scientifically okay to open up the country and to drop all the restrictions. But for political reasons, they did that, and that cost the government tens of millions of dollars, cost us airlift, and cost us tourists coming into St. Kitts and Nevis. That, of course, was a bad decision, and all indications are pointing towards that. And so in opening up in August, we were able to salvage some of the season in 2022. In 2023, we are seeing an increase in the number of cruise passengers. We are seeing an increase also in persons by airlines. So by air and by sea, we are seeing significant increases. And therefore, we want the tourism sector to continue to grow and expand here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And so we will see that. As you know, also I want to announce that regarding the Christmas season concessions, we have to strike a balance between our small businesses and helping our people. Last year, we start at the beginning of November. This year, we start at the middle of November. We have increased it to $250. Why? Because of inflation. It used to be the first 200 US dollars, but we have increased it because we are aware of inflation that is being imported. I want to say to our people that a lot of the increases that we are seeing is because we import those increases. So if America has inflation, we will get inflation as well because a lot of our products come from there. However, I want to say to our people that we have alternatives here in the Caribbean. For example, and I would like to point out that a box of Kellogg's, same size, I think it's 21 grams, same size, costs about $21 plus. If you get the Sunshine brand, is half of that, is about $11. So for every product that we are accustomed to, we have an alternative. Why is it important to have alternative? I can't tell Kellogg's how much to sell this stuff for. And we have sought to decrease freight taxes and so forth in an effort to drop the prices. But if we take away everything, the government will make no money at all. We have to strike a balance. Every country must have taxes, and so we have reduced them as low as possible, but not too low so that we would not be able to collect enough to continue our social programs and continue the development of St. Kitts and Nevis. It's a reality. However, I would say to our people, for every one of those major products, you have an alternative. Can you imagine one brand costing that amount and the next brand costing half of that? And so I want to encourage our people to look at it. And I have a whole list here of what the one brand is and what the other brand is and the difference in cost. And if persons were to choose some of the different brands, which are of good quality as well, they will see a significant drop in their food bill. But where the food bill stands, because we are importing it and our people have developed the taste for imported food, no matter what we do, those prices are coming from the United States and the factories at much higher cost. That is what we call imported inflation. We cannot dictate that. For example, if you were to buy a carnation milk, remember the carnation milk, wherever it is produced, it costs more. So no matter how you import it, you are going to be paying more for carnation milk, for example, because that's an imported item and you're importing the inflation. However, if you choose another brand, for example, Bonnie, or any other brand that is, go through the regulations and make sure that they comply with standard, it is significantly cheaper. Why am I saying this? It's to show that we have alternatives. And one of the ways in dealing with imported inflation is to deal with having options for our people. But apart from that, we will have to continue to work. We will have to work to improve and to increase our agricultural output. And the Minister of Agriculture is here. Whatever challenges there are, we definitely have to work to them. And I also want to relate that the discounted VAT rate days are the 15th and the 16th of December 2023. The discounted VAT rate days are the 15th and the 16th of December. That's Friday, December 15th, and Saturday, December 16th. Of course, before Christmas, so that people can really have an opportunity to shop before Christmas. And so that would help as well. So everything else remain the same. We will just look at those days. So you have the days and the discounted days as well for your information so that you can plan accordingly. So those are the updates I would like to give at this particular point in time and to give an opportunity to the press to ask whatever questions they may have. As you know, we are here to answer your questions, and then I will give an opportunity for each minister here to give an update. And where the minister is absent, I will fill in the information as well. And if needs be, to direct you to the appropriate ministry who have that information. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for informing us on the updates and developments within our federation. We are now at the point where we open the floor to the media for your questions, and we want to thank you for your patience and attentiveness as we move forward towards the question and answer segment. Please note, as per usual, that all questions are to be directed to the Prime Minister, who will then delegate them to the relevant ministers to respond when necessary. And again, please remember to indicate your name and the media house that you represent when you step forward to ask your questions. We are asking that you ask 2 questions at a time so we can allow for smooth transition of smooth flow of the proceedings. At this point, the floor is open, and I invite the media houses to pose your questions to the minister, to the Prime Minister.
Good morning, Prime Minister, and to all the other members, ministers at the head table. I also want to take this opportunity to express my sincere wish for full recovery, as well as on behalf of the SK Newsline, to Minister Marsha Henderson. We hope that she recovers well and recovers quickly.
Thank you very
Prime
much.
Minister, the matter of the CBI is constantly being buzzed around. And according to the UK Guardian, that article that was written in the UK Guardian, it cited about 88,000 passports being issued within the region. And their concern is that the EU Commission concern is that of security. And therefore, they are pushing for the cessation or ending of visa-free access to some of the European countries. Now, they quoted for St. and Nevis an amount of 36,700 passports. Can you confirm if this is correct? If not, what is the total number of passports that St. and Nevis has approved over the years? And since you have taken office, how many passports have you issued under the CBI program? Secondly, it is understood that a group of Russian, Ukrainian, and Belarusian applicants who applied for St. and Nevis citizenship under the CBI program have started an online petition to get their money back, because at some point their applications were approved, and then the Citizenship by Investment Unit disapproved the approval, and therefore they want their money back. And apparently they have not been successful in getting their money back. Can you explain what are the complete circumstances around this, and what actions is the CIU taking in regards to these applicants? Those are my 2 questions for the time being.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bad. Have you ever visited the CIU unit? Have you ever written to them?
Well, we have called 4 times to make appointments to see these.
You wrote.
We have not written to them.
Okay, I want to encourage you.
We have not been able to.
Right, I want to encourage you to write to them as well, because I think I mentioned that in press conferences before. Nonetheless, let me address your questions, Mr. Bad. Thank you very, very, very much. On the last one, with respect to the nationalities that you mentioned, when we got into office, based on what was discussed, the program was stopped to these regions, as you know. Well, I don't know if you know, but it was before our time. They were stopped in June of 2022. March, sorry. Of 2022. And therefore, based on what was happening, we continued the action. In terms of the return payment, of course, that, and I would say plainly, I've discussed that multiple times, and that is being dealt with as well. So it doesn't take a petition or anything. I don't know which petition that would be. I haven't seen any results of a petition. I don't know who is running this petition, so I can't speak to anything that is out there just on social media. I will speak to something that is official and give you the government's official position. However, the administrative aspect of that is being dealt with. That I can say, because I think we are responsible. But when you take over something, as I said before, they have to be audited, and one must have the requisite information before I speak on any matters to do with this. As you know, the CBI would have gone to changes after changes because we had promised that we would make upgraded changes, and we will continue to make the upgraded changes. Just like you in your field, Mr. Bad, I assume you would make upgraded changes accordingly. So the one on the nationalities that you mentioned, that is being dealt with administratively. And to give you the background, that was since March 2022 when that decision was made, and therefore, as we do our audit and find those, we deal with them accordingly, as you can appreciate. All right? So that was not a decision that we made and did not. We met that decision, and we are dealing with it administratively because that aspect of it was not dealt with, to be straight up and honest with you. The other thing that you would have asked is about the numbers. And I've said to you before that the audit is actually being had. I am not going to call a number until that audit is complete, but I can tell you this, that the vast majority was signed by the immediate past Prime Minister. That I would say. And as we look more and look more, we are finding where everything is. That I would say as well. That the issues of the security that are being asked, we have not laxed our security measures. As a matter of fact, we have strengthened them and we have added a new layer of security. That's a second layer. And we are going to add a third layer in short order. In short order, we are going to add a third layer. And that third layer will tell you would be an international security officer to make sure that even those who would have had the citizenship before, that we have still a system by which we make sure that protection is also there. Not just during the time when you apply it, but even after, that active surveillance is to continue. We suspect we'll be the first country to do it. But as I said before, that this government has taken the decision to take all the necessary measures to protect our country and to protect our people. So that I wanted to add with respect to the security measures as far as the CBI program is concerned. With respect to the audit, because it's an extensive audit that has to be done in terms of giving you an exact number, and I'm encouraging you to write to the CIU and to have a formal meeting with them. But again, because this information is sensitive, I cannot speak to it until I have all the data. I know sometimes it's frustrating, but until that is completed and we made the changes, because our first thrust was to upgrade the program, make sure all the necessary security measures are in there so that we say to our international partners in the UK, in the EU, or wherever they are, that St. Kitts and Nevis is serious about that. And as you can see, St. Kitts and Nevis is the only Caribbean country that I know of who just recently got visa-free access to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I don't know if you noticed that. That is not done just because it is done. It is done when an assessment is done and determine that our country is safe to have that type of relations with. That was a serious and a significant foreign policy win for St. Kitts and Nevis. And just to update, I'll be traveling to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia sometime next week. where we'll have a summit with Saudi Arabia, CARICOM, the first in the history. Again, St. Kitts and Nevis is the first Caribbean country to establish diplomatic ties with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. As you know, the ambassador just recently came to St. Kitts and Nevis, and of course, he presented his credentials to Her Excellency, Governor General Dame Marcella Liebert, and they were accepted, and we have now established official relations with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, being the first country in the Caribbean to do so. So it means, therefore, that significant confidence into what St. Kitts and Nevis is doing and will continue to do. So that I will say. And with respect to, as I'm not trying to push that aside at all, Mr. Bad. This is a sensitive thing, and when I speak on it, it would have been because our security specialists, both local and international, will be able to say to us, this is it, or to me as the Prime Minister, this is it, Mr. Prime Minister. And we need more time. However, that at no point that our security apparatus will falter. As a matter of fact, we have a very strong security apparatus, and we are strengthening it to the point where it should become, as I would say, very sealed, so that we can continue to engender confidence in our international partners. And as I just said, with respect to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, that has been significant in terms of a major confidence in St. Kitts and Nevis for us to be the first in this region to have established diplomatic ties and to have visa-free access. So if you want to go to Saudi Arabia, you don't need a visa. You have to do, I think it's the ETA, and you travel. Somebody else from within the region, they have to get a visa. Again, strengthening our reach internationally. And that is because we are taking very serious steps. However, we know that the Europeans have concerns, and we have met with them. I led the meeting as the chair. Well, I was part of that meeting led by the chair of CARICOM, rather, in that particular meeting. I'm speaking of another meeting. In that particular meeting in Brussels. As you know, I told the country I was traveling to Brussels. And we met with Commissioner Johansson and her team. And we had an open dialogue and conversation, frank and open dialogue and a conversation. And the measures that we will take to make sure that the confidence remains. And you have spoken to some of the matters, which we have dealt with in St. Kitts and Nevis. Remember that I was heavily criticized for acting very quickly. Some people thought that I acted too quickly, and I may have overshot a bit. I don't say no, that I acted quickly, because my sense is we had to do all, we inherited this, and therefore we had to do all that we had to do to make sure that whatever the concerns were, that we dealt, we continue, will deal with them. So we dealt with them, we are dealing with them, and we're going to get better as time goes by. Why is it important to say to them that St. Kitts and Nevis is serious when it comes to this matter? Would question the security matters. We have to make sure that we can reply and say, we have done all that we could have done to make sure that when you look at it, that you feel confident that we are doing what should be done. However, I cannot say that the discussions will not continue. They will continue. We have to continue them. I cannot say that they are not concerns. However, we'll do all that we can do to allay those concerns that our international, where we have excellent relations, we want to really make sure we engender the confidence there. And that is where we are. And with respect to the numbers, when that was asked in the last time, and you remember when you asked it in the last administration, what I would report from the preliminary data that I'm having, that most of those were signed by the former Prime Minister, the immediate one. That is what I would say, as we continue to do the audit and make sure that we get a specific number so that when I speak, it is because the auditor said to me, Mr. Prime Minister, this is our result. Of course, a major program like this needs some time to properly audit it, but we are definitely going to, on our way, we have asked already. We have asked our international partners to help us to find the right persons who can help us to do this as well, so that they, with respect to all of this. But I say, finally, that security is our number one concern. And we have added a second layer, and we will add a third layer, because at the end of the program, it's contributing to our national development. It is a critical part of our economy because of how it was structured under the last administration. We have to do everything to protect it. We have to be responsible when we deal with it and we approach it. Every citizen should be, because every citizen benefits from it. And it is not a matter to take lightly or loosely. And we should not try to score political points on a matter so sensitive. But we should think country above self and ask ourselves, what can I do in my space to make sure that I protect this for St. Kitts and Nevis? That is what I want each of us, whether we are, wherever we are, from journalists to professionals to technicians to just citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis, retired or not. It is important. Why? It has helped tremendously for us to do the reset that everybody would have benefited one way or the other from the reset. Because in dropping prices and giving more tax breaks and so forth, everybody would have benefited. Helps to pay for the PAP, which we are going to transfer. Helps to pay for the Elevate. Helps to pay for STEP. Helps to pay for a number of critical government initiatives. All of us benefit to seek to protect it and not allow it to become some political football. That is why even during our campaign, we said nothing negative about the CBI. You could remember the immediate former Prime Minister was saying that it was disparaging it and not recognizing that those were irresponsible statements. I am not going to get into that. I am thinking first and foremost of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. I know I'm saying long on this matter, but I'm saying it so that we can understand. We have to be responsible. It's just like tourism. It is for all of us. All of us have to do our part to promote it, to protect it, to make it better, and not allow it to become part of the political football game, except to say we can make it better, if you want to say that. Because in the end, how will you eat is the question. So all these matters that are really national matters, important to our economy and development, all of us need to take responsibility in making sure that we protect them as much as possible. It is very critical, country above self. But I am pleased with the changes that we have made. They, of course, will cause some changes and effect, in different areas, but it's to say to our partners that we are serious about the security matters of this program, and we will do whatever we can do from our perspective to engender that confidence in them so that we can continue to have good relations to our visa-free access and so forth. And so that is where we are with that, Mr. Bad. Thank you very much.
Before we go back to the floor, I have a few questions that came through virtually as well, so we are going to alternate between the in-house audience and our virtual audience. We have some questions here from Mr. Jarvis Brown of Bond Radio. The first question, following the fire at the Four Seasons Resort in Nevis, does the Ministry of National Security, by extension the federal government, see the need to invest in additional fire tenders for the island of Nevis? Charlestown could not be used due to a mechanical problem.
Right.
The second question, what is the current status of the water drilling project in Payon and Seacrest?
Right. So I will answer the first one first. With respect to the situation with the fire tenders, as you know, we are going through the process of restructuring the fire department. the federal government is responsible for this. So what we have done thus far, if you remember, we have appointed a number of firefighters. I think it's about 15 of them, so that we can bring order and structure in to that very, very vital aspect of the ministry, that department, the fire and rescue department. So that was one of the things that we have done as far as the human resource development is concerned. The other thing that we are doing is an inventory. For example, one of the major things coming as a capital project is to deal with the equipment that we have at fire. So that is before us. And therefore, that the fire chief is available to confirm these things as well. And this was not being done because there was a fire at Four Seasons. It's because when we got there, we realized that the fire department was to some extent in debt. Why? Because you had people there who were being called firefighters and who had not done any training. I said, how can you be called a firefighter if you have not done any training? We met trained firefighters there who couldn't get appointed because of politics. And then we met people who were being promoted above those who were much more qualified than them as firefighters. You check their file, never did an exam, but those who did the exams and passed were left behind, and some of them who never passed the exam are ahead of them. And so I said, that cannot work. We need to restructure all those who would have passed and in a position and positions are available, promote them and appoint them. And so we did that. And then we said, those who didn't have training, they have to go to training. Because you can't call yourself a firefighter if you're not trained. And we did not only do that in St. Kitts, we did that in Nevis. The person who heads Nevis is actually a woman firefighter who has been appointed in her position, dealing with the fire matter. And they have before us the capital project to deal with the cost. I think I spoke to the ministry, the PS, and she has presented that, and that has gone to the Ministry of Finance as well. And this is before the fire at Four Seasons, because our inventory showed that we needed to act on the assets, the physical aspects in terms of equipment and tenders and so forth. And then the other one was to deal with the human resource aspect. So that, yes, I will say to Von Radio, yes. And they can go back and check that as well. With respect, there was another one in terms of the drilling. Now the drilling in Kenya, we have found water. The first tests have shown that the water is potable, meaning that it's drinkable. So it's good water that was found. And it is the largest single well in St. Kitts that possibly would have been discovered up to this point. The largest single well, producing somewhere between 700,000 to 1 million gallons, and they are developing a method to allow that well to last at least 40 years. That will resolve the water in Keon. However, you need to do what is called the 72-hour test. The 72-hour test require a particular type of piping, which we don't have here. And they ordered the piping, but because of supply chain issues, that has slowed down the process. But those are on the way. They might be here. So those pipes go in, and they allow for a 72-hour evaluation. Because if you go in, you might find good water and assume that the water is good. But what the 72-hour test does is allow that water to continue to flow from between the bedrocks and so forth, and so you can test that water flowing. So just in case there is an issue, you would pick it up before you make that water available to the people of Keon and St. Kitts and Nevis. So it's a matter of safety and following World Health Organization standards. We are not going to compromise that. So there might be a little bit of delay, but we think we are in a good position to accept that delay, because it's about safety first. Thus far, it looks very, very good, but we just want to make sure that international standards, which we have always been following here in St. Kitts and Nevis, so that when that water is available, we know that people's safety is really protected. So that is where we are with it. So I'm almost certain that those piping would be here. They have already been ordered and so forth, so they should be on their way. So that is where we are at with the water situation. However, nonetheless, what we did for persons who were so severely affected by the water, we had a process of providing them with water tanks. I want to clear up that. I know you have a question ranking, but since we're on the issue of water, let me clear it up. I want to clear up that and say that we provided the tanks to the persons who are most severely affected. Everybody saw, it just happened to be my constituency, that the people of Keyon and St. Peter's in some areas were, significantly affected as a result of the shortage of water because of the drought that we are suffering as a result of climate change. And so we know that in the previous administration, for example, they gave garbage bins. We know that they gave garbage bins. So what if, and we think that it was the responsible thing to do to get those tanks to those who are most severely affected. Because we would send the fire truck and the water truck, and they can't hold enough water to last them for days. We almost had to send the fire truck and the water truck on a daily basis because they would have these little buckets. We understand that if they don't have the extra cash to pick up a tank because after the assessment you recognize how challenging it was. And then we said that the government before could have given garbage those who are most severely affected. But what is a sustainable plan? And that has helped significantly. And what is a sustainable plan? Because remember before that one extra well was dug by the previous, drilled by the previous administration. Not one water tank was given out to the people to ease their burdens. Not 1 gallon of, and this week I am told by water that Thursday they're going to turn on the pump at Timothy Hill because we are getting an extra 400,000 gallons of water, and that is going to serve Frigate Bay area and the southeast, which has been significantly affected area. And the water that we used to draw from Bastille to go there will now stay in Bastille and go to St. Peter's and so forth. So even before the desal plant is constructed, we will see improvement in the water delivery to the Frigate Bay area, the southeast peninsula area before Christmas, and also we'll see improvement in the St. Peter's Bastille area as well. And when the well comes on in Keyon, that would help significantly Keyon and the surrounding communities. But we are also picking up because of the drought. Other areas might be affected as a result. And that is why we are bringing on the 2 million gallon desal plant, which is going to add renewable energy to that. So we are dealing with the water issue. We inherited a serious water issue where nothing was done, absolutely nothing was done to add an extra gallon to our water source or any type of resource given so that people can better store water and help to make sure that they have water available. None of that, so we have done that. So just to finally say that we are moving along with what we see in Keyon. We are very, very encouraged by preliminary data, and as soon as those pipes get into St. Kitts, we will do the 72-hour test, and once that test shows that the water is potable, it will be connected to our water system, and that will be an extra 700 to 1 million gallons per day, which will resolve Bastille Southeast. A big part of the country would be resolved as a result. And so I look forward to Thursday when that pump is turned on. As a matter of fact, if I have time, I will go to see when the pump is turned on and the water situation for Frigate Bay, Southeast Peninsula is resolved. That is our tourism area. And the issue in Bastille, also St. Peter's, will improve. But needless to say that we need water. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. The floor is open.
Good morning, Lawson Rankin, Sugar City FM. Mr. Prime Minister, what percentage of our GDP is you from the CBI program, and what percentage of the GDP are you trying to get it down to? How would the substitute revenue be generated, and is there a targeted time frame to accomplish this? And also my second question for now is I've heard several Caribbean countries expressing their position on the war in Israel. What is our country's position? Would you join the voices in asking for a ceasefire, or would you not want to damage our relationship with the U.S.?
With respect to you asked, sorry, the mic was off. With respect to your question on the CBI and what is contributing to the GDP, well, I can say with respect to the CBI, is contributing presently especially to our current budget, at least 50%. Let's start with that. So it's contributing significantly. I'm aware of that, you're aware of that. Why? Because tourism went down, other industries went down during COVID, and then again, I don't think you can think of any major investments that took place over the last 7 years. You can't think of any. If you think any major investments that brought foreign direct dollars into St. Kitts and Nevis outside of the CBI, there was none. So we appreciate that issue. So what are we seeking to do in terms of cutting our dependence on CBI? We are trying to, one, strengthen sectors and to bring new sectors online, and really to do things. And I'll give you some concrete examples. For example, tourism. Why is it we are pushing to increase tourism by 15% this year in terms of airlift, cruise, and so forth? Why is it we are pushing that so hard? So that tourism has the potential to generate more for us. And if it does that, it means that our dependence on the CBI will be lessened. Again, CBI is not important. We want CBI to remain. It's critically important as part of our economic structure. However, what we are seeking is real diversification. So we are going after tourism, cruise port, airport, and we are looking at infrastructural development to strengthen them so that we can be in a better position to expand. We need more people to come to St. Kitts and Nevis. We need to have more offerings in St. Kitts and Nevis to attract more people here. So that is where we are doing tourism, make it bigger, make it stronger. And I would say that the minister is doing an excellent job. The other aspect is energy. We subsidize energy here in St. Kitts and Nevis. A lot of that money to subsidize energy comes from the CBI program. If we were to convert to renewable, for example, and we met an agreement there that we have determined needed to be reworked, because we want to say to investors, we are not irresponsible. If you had conversation with St. Kitts and Nevis and documents were signed, government is continuous, administration changes, but we want to set any type of investment that would have been made even before us. However, we will review and make sure that they're in keeping with the principles by which we govern. And so we took that solar plant, we have discussed it with other countries because you had partners from other countries who had invested, and these countries were very interested into what their home companies were doing in the Caribbean, St. Kitts and Nevis. And so we are very close to the end to bring something forward that satisfies them, satisfies us, and will satisfy all. So that is what we are doing. How can we expand our renewable sources so that we can cut our dependence on foreign sources of energy, and therefore subsidy will not be required, therefore less dependence on the CBI. So we are really pushing that, along with seeking to push the geothermal as well, and we will make an announcement soon again. So that is another one. And can we have energy as a sector? The other one that we are looking at is our food bill. And how can we cut our food bill? And I'm sure the Minister of Agriculture will speak to some extent on that when he gives his update. How can we cut our food bill? How can we also seek investment within agriculture? How can we expand our small industry, where I'm speaking about manufacturing? For example, I can say that there is a proposal before the government to actually manufacture the water tanks. That is what we are looking at. How can we get our small manufacturers, for example, wipers here? The Indian government is approaching us. How can they retrofit a factory for us? And I'm sure the Minister of Agriculture can also speak to that as well, so that we can produce more and depend less. So what we are seeking to do, good, and the other thing is, how can we help our people to create wealth? And we have a major announcement to make at the end of this year of how we're going to help our people to start thinking in those ways. How can we create wealth for our own people? So we have to become wealth creators and not just depend solely on a salary from a job. It's not going to cut it alone, but we have to create the opportunities. So the idea is, Rankin, how are we going to diversify to cut back on this significant percentage that CBI contributes. However, the point remains CBI is critically important, and we have to fight to maintain it and do what we have to do to keep it very strong going forward. And so therefore we are working on that. So that's a very good question, and the simple answer is by the diversification of our economy and making sure that we work as hard as possible to reduce our dependence on multiple things that have nothing to do with us. Food importation and so forth. These prices we don't control. All that is why we want to create a sustainable island state, to deal with the question that you have asked. And that is why we are seeking to invest in it. And we're asking our people to join us with that. Otherwise, it's going to be a revolving cycle and not really dealing with the crux of the matter. But at this time, we are dealing with polycrises. What are the polycrises? You know them. Post-COVID, inflation, wars, the cost of energy, needing more assistance from the government. A lot of countries, we are dealing with what you call a polycrisis, something that the world has never seen before. The world have seen wars before. The world have seen all of this, but all of that compounded with climate change is really making it so challenging that countries have had to adopt new measures of dealing with it. But our way of dealing with this is to diversify and to expand other sectors so that we can cut down on the reliance on the CBI program. Unfortunately, it was heavily depended on before, and other sectors suffered as a result. And so what we are seeking to do is to expand these sectors, bring new sectors on board so that we can make sure that we are in the best position. But at this time, it's a high percentage, and this 2024, if you will listen to the consultations, we are expected to recover to 2019 levels, and we are hoping the new projects that will be coming on and the expansion, and as we build towards the sustainable island state. And that is why I'm saying, as I finally say, that every citizen is required in this one. We can't escape it, left nor right. It is a worldwide issue, but we have to have our homegrown response, or responses to these new realities.
The question was the Federation's position on the war.
Right, I think that there was something. We are Federation. We believe the loss of life in any country is something that we would always not condone. We'll never condone that. And so we want to see peace as well in the Middle East. We want to see peace. And so we are asking for peace as a country. Wherever there is war, we will always ask for peace. That is the position of St. Kitts and Nevis. Let there be peace. And we will partner with who we have to partner with so that the position will always be our position as a country as long as we are here. Thanks.
We have another set of questions from our virtual media. Mr. Jarvis Brown again from Bond Radio is asking, how has St. Kitts and Nevis been faring against the dengue and other respiratory diseases? And if there are any plans for a double salary for civil servants and pensioners? And final question, on the discussion surrounding the minimum wage, and considering that there has been much conversation about raising it to 500 EC a week, is that practical and feasible for businesses?
Right, so so that anybody else can answer.
Sure. I'll repeat. The first question, how has St. Kitts and Nevis been faring against dengue and other respiratory diseases?
I'm the Minister of Health as well.
The second question, any plans for a double salary for civil servants?
I guess I'll have to answer that as well.
And the final question, could the public be given an update on the discussion surrounding the minimum wage?
Okay, I guess I'll have to answer that. Yes. So let me give you some numbers on the dengue matter, because we have been keeping a very close eye on the dengue matter. It was reported to me, and let me give you these numbers because we continue to monitor it as well. So on Friday, I got the update that we did have a few more cases, but most of the cases that were confirmed were coming out of Nevis. So we have about 22 laboratory confirmed cases. But from my report, no, I have not been informed that we had any admissions to the hospital. So we are fogging, and I show the fogging schedule. I want to thank the CMO and the Ministry of Health. They have sat with the persons who are even directly involved with the fogging, and the fogging schedule comes out and you all see it. So we have been able to limit the number of cases because we are very aggressive. However, I'm asking all of our citizens in St. Kitts and Nevis to take with is spread by a mosquito. It's called Aedes aegypti. That mosquito bites, and when it bites, it spread the dengue virus. And therefore, you want to eliminate any breeding grounds. Where are the breeding grounds? The dengue tend in static water. So if you have any static water, buckets with water, or drums with water, either turn them over, bore holes into them. But static water needs to be eliminated, and we can go further and start to treat the static water. Cover up your water that these mosquitoes don't breed. That is one of the major things that we can do to protect ourselves. The next thing we need to do, other measures we can do, if we have mosquito nets, we can use those. We can also use off, the one that is prescribed. The pharmacist will be able to tell you which one to avoid mosquito bites and so forth, so that we can measures to protect ourselves. So while we have some cases, we are managing, but all of us must be involved. So the CMO keeps me updated regularly when we get our numbers. But the numbers, last numbers show that Nevis might be more affected in terms of confirmed cases than St. Kitts and Nevis. However, we are not. I have not gotten any. We have admissions to the hospitals. The other matter that I would like to deal with is the matter of infections, respiratory infections. We know, and as always said, that COVID will remain with humanity. It will not go anywhere. Just like flu has remained with humanity. It is not going anywhere, at least for now. However, it depends on the immunity of the population. Thus far, we know that if we test people with respiratory, you'll find people with COVID. However, we are not seeing any admissions as a result. And in discussions with the CMO, it means that our immunity is really doing well at this particular time. So his question, how are we doing? We're feeling well. With respect to the double salary that was asked about, as I've said before, we always look at our finances and we always move. We have helped significantly since we have been in office because we understood the post-COVID situation. We had to go into our savings in order to help our people out of the difficult challenges, to help create an environment where people could get back to work, where small businesses would have a chance. Because as you know, we gave a small business loan at Development Bank, which was at a very low interest rate. I think it was 2.5%. Very, very, very low interest rate in comparison to market prices in terms of interest rates on loans. And we gave about 398 loans. I think that was the last update I had. Significant number. And I would like to report that most people, over 90+%, that persons are repaying their loans. And so we are pleased with that, which will give the Development Bank more opportunities to invest. Again, we had to salvage the Development Bank. And so it's in a position where it gave over 300 plus loans. And I want to thank our people for paying back those loans. We also gave the reset, which cost us hundreds, well, I would say tens of millions of dollars in terms of the loss from the land, from housing, from electricity that we have to subsidize. Because we have subsidized collectively to tens of millions of dollars this year to keep electricity costs down. We have subsidized tens of millions over the time to keep gas prices down. Remember, each gallon you buy, the government is paying $2.25. Remember the small tank of gas, or what we call the propane gas, so it's in the tanks, whether small or big, the government is heavily subsidizing it, that you can buy a tank of gas for $30. So we have to keep our cost of living manageable. As a matter of fact, St. Kitts and Nevis has one of the lowest inflation rates in the Caribbean right now. Upfront as the government to protect the people. And we have spent hundreds of millions of dollars. I want our people to appreciate that. Hundreds of millions of dollars to do all of this for our people. To pay for STEP, to pay for PAP, to pay for Elevate, plus all the other subsidies, the subsidies in gas, electricity, water, the giving of the bonuses to help people out of the financial rut that many of them found themselves in, or families rather. If you had 2-3 people living in a house, the house would bring in extra $3,000 to help small businesses. And therefore, when you ask about the double salary, what I want us to reflect on is how much has the government done thus far. In this short time, no other government in the Caribbean has done as much or near as much as what we have. None. And we have done that to help our people to recover much quicker. So when you compare St. Kitts and Nevis to many others, we are faring fairly well. Of course, that is, everything is relative. We will never agree that things are perfect. But we are making sure people have gas, people can move around, and go to school. Remember, we had to give parents money to help buy their school uniform because of the difficulties again. Because we know we will recover at the end of this year. So we have done for our people. And therefore, we had to tap into our reserve. And we understood that we have to do that because when you have savings for a rainy day. However, you cannot use up all of your savings. And so we are looking at it and monitoring it and see where we are now that we are on our way to recovering the country and our people. And a decision will be made with respect to that. However, the principle is where opportunities are, this government will always support the opportunity to help our people here in St. Kitts and Nevis. So that is where we are with that. And I think there was one last question. Right, with respect to that, the Honorable Sam Conda, as you know, is leading on that. He already even visited the cabinet of St. Kitts and Nevis. I spoke to the chair of the cabinet of Nevis, who is the premier, and he expressed it very, very well. Discussions continue with the private sector, the workers' unions, and also the government. And so we are really winding down the discussion on the minimum wage as far as its increase. We are still in the process of recovery as an economy, but we do recognize that we have to see that $1 was added to the minimum wage. And therefore, in that scenario, we are seeking to give our people here in St. Kitts and Nevis in terms of their wages. So we have taken that very seriously, and the Honorable Sam Conda, who is leading on that, is really winding up his discussions to now come before the cabinet. So that is where that is. The negotiations are in the final stages, and based on where we are at in our recovery, the best decision will be made.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We go back to the floor. I think Ms. Thompson, ZIZ.
Correct, Mervyn Thompson, ZIZ. To break it up a little, WIPO had their regional conference and ministerial meeting the end of last week into this week. Well, it's intended for the AG, but what decisions were reached and what will be done for St. Kitts and Nevis in St. Kitts and Nevis? What is the federal government's stance on Venezuela's intended annexation of Guyana's Essequibo region? And promises were made to civil servants who advanced themselves in degrees and would be appointed to the scale of K33. To date, that has not been mentioned, and persons are wondering about a time frame for this implement. Thank you.
Sorry, Ms. Thompson, can you repeat the second question regarding Guyana?
The federal government's stance on Venezuela's intended annexation of Guyana's Essequibo region.
The first one was correct.
Yes. Good morning to everyone. St. Kitts and Nevis was fortunate to host the 11th meeting of Caribbean heads of intellectual property and ministers with responsibility for heads of property, which was conducted by the World Intellectual Property Organization. Thursday, Friday last week was the meeting of the heads, and yesterday was the meeting of the ministers of IP, which I was fortunate enough to chair. During the meeting, there were various resolutions that were agreed by the heads, and all of the resolutions and proposals from the heads of IP were adopted by the ministers yesterday. In summary, because it's in great detail, the World Intellectual Property Organization seeks to assist countries in promoting intellectual property, demystifying it, and allowing our people to be able to monetize their innovation, their talent, and their skill sets. And during the meeting that occurred over the last few days, is that St. Kitts and Nevis is the first in the world for WIPO to launch an IP and sports project, where WIPO will engage consultants and meet with the Ministry of Sport and all of the stakeholders in sports teams, athletes, etc., to develop a strategy that can actually allow our sportsmen and women to monetize their talent. Let's take an example. Kim Collins, 100-meter world champion, decides to design a shoe. Kim Collins is popular for being a sprinter a fast sprinter despite his size. And all of the young athletes throughout the world who do not have bulk and height, who want to be like Kim Collins, will buy his shoe. So that new athlete in St. Kitts and Nevis who has that idea or who has that popularity, say for example, Jazara Claxton, could now meet with professionals from WIPO and the Intellectual Property Office and the Ministry of Sports who will be trained to find out how she can monetize her talent. For example, Tom Brady has, I think, TB12 as his logo, which he owns the copy. So anybody who prints a shirt or a cap with TB12 on it, he gets money from it. Jazara could choose a number, for example, I'll just give an example. Her number for West Indies when she eventually plays for West Indies, or, well, the senior team rather than the A team. She can choose a number, and she could be JC, let's say her number is 7, JC7. And she could seek to potentially trademark that. And then young girls throughout the world who want to be like Jazara Claxton can buy products, shoes, clothing, ties, that trademark. So the ultimate goal of the project is to show how sports teams, sports people in sync, and on a grander scale, they're also going to provide support for small businesses. So how can small businesses get their business name trademarked? And also we discussed geographical identifiers, which is, for example, Champagne is a place in France. It is an alcoholic beverage made from grapes, which is made in different places in the world, but only that beverage made in Champagne can be called champagne. That is what you call a geographical identifier. We were discussing Grenada. Grenada has nutmeg. What the Intellectual Property Organization was saying is that if you sell nutmeg for $2 a pound on the world market, but then you get a geographic identifier that it is Grenada nutmeg, the value can go up 3-4 times. So for example, we were discussing the example of guava cheese. If our producers of guava cheese can show that there's a specific type of guava in Kitts that produces a specific type of cheese through a specific process, we could have St. Kitts guava cheese. So the small business owner who produces guava cheese and sells a pack for $2 can now label it St. Kitts guava cheese and sell it for $10. And those are the types of real-world impacts that we were discussing during the meeting. They want to assist with women entrepreneurs. They want to deal with small businesses, creatives, for example. They gave an example of a woman in, Prime Minister was Uganda, I think it was, yes, in Uganda, who created a antiseptic ointment in the back of her yard, and she used to sell it through plastics. And the WIPO worked with her to then establish a brand. And from operating out of her backyard by herself, she now is the owner of a small business with 15 employees, selling that specific ointment with proper labeling, etc., and shipping it throughout the partnership that we are trying to get with WIPO, who have the expertise and the funding to be able to help our people to then monetize their innovation, their talent, and their skills. So that is the macro level result of the meeting. And as the Director General said, great impact on me. We don't want these meetings just to be talk shops. We want there to be actual results. The minister responsible for sport and the creative economy was there. The Prime Minister was there. So they saw that St. Kitts and Nevis is serious about diversifying our economy by empowering our people economically. And when we have meetings like that, and we have the most senior people, the Director General, the Deputy Director General, the Regional Director for Caribbean and Latin America, the Caribbean Director, Ministers of IP, Permanent Secretaries of IP, Heads of IP, all come into St. Kitts and Nevis and see how serious we are by the participation of the leader of our government and the minister responsible for that area. They were very happy to say that they're willing to collaborate with us to make it a reality for our people to then monetize their products. So that is the biggest result for me and the biggest impact. And I hope that the fruits of that will become a reality in the near future.
The second question was in regards to the Venezuela-Guyana situation.
Right. CARICOM has put out a statement. I think that was seen. But as you know, St. Kitts and Nevis, we have relations with both Guyana and we have relations also with Venezuela. Just recently, we celebrated the 40th anniversary. Our position is that this region is a region of peace. And as I've said before, that we will do all we can to continue this region remains a region of peace. And so I know that discussions are taking place. I am not in a position to speak to all the specifics of those discussions. But the thrust of those discussions is to make sure that we remain a zone of peace and that the best position is reached to ensure that. That is where we are at with respect to our position with Venezuela and Guyana. And I think, well, I know the foreign minister mentioned it in his statement when he spoke at the ceremony, small ceremony, to commemorate the 40th year of establishment with respect to our relations between Venezuela and St. Kitts and Nevis. So that is our position, that we'll continue to make sure that we put our position forward and help in the process that this area remains a zone of peace and the best position is reached with respect to these two nations. And we're not going to compromise.
The third question was in regards to those civil servants who advanced degrees and the appointments are still delayed.
Right. So in the civil service, there are two things at play here. One of them being that when you are appointed into a particular position and normally your degree is to match whatever you are being hired for. So if you're an architect, government, you come in and you occupy that position and it's paid accordingly. So there are a number of persons who have been upgraded and been appointed as a result. Has the process been completed? No. So I would say that this process is actually ongoing as we speak. And there are a lot of civil servants who have benefited. Have all benefited as yet? I would say not as yet, because it's an ongoing process, but I know a lot of civil servants. So the goal is to make sure that persons who have degrees from accredited and recognized institutions, that they would be remunerated. The words there that are important are accredited and recognized. And so that is part of the process as well. Because there are some institutions where people get degrees from and we're not traditionally connected to, and therefore we want to make sure that that is an accredited institution and it's a recognizable institution, or a recognized institution as well, so that we get the quality. It's critical and it's important because a lot of people do things online, and therefore you want the accreditation authorities to make sure that what is coming through is the quality that we expect to come through. So that is part of it as well, without calling any particular program. But I will say that that has been going on and is an ongoing process thus far. So we want to encourage people to make sure that they qualify themselves, they get themselves so they can advance themselves, their families, their country, because we need people with specific skills to help and to aid in our development. We need that human resource development as well.
Any further questions?
Good day, Kevin Brown, Jonathan.
Before we go, what I wanted to do, make sure that each minister give an update of their ministry. Okay. Right.
COP28 starts at the end of the month. What are the Federation's priorities going into the conference? How hopeful in gaining tangible progress in the fight against climate change, especially as it relates to financing for small island developing states? Regarding the 25 by 25 which the country has adopted, where does the nation stand in implementing the strategic plan laid in July? What are the areas of focus for 2024 to help drive the agenda, and how on board are farmers? Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Brown, can you repeat the first question?
COP28 starts at the end of the month. What are the Federation's priorities going into the conference? And how hopeful is it going to be further tangible progress in the fight against climate change, especially as it relates to financing for small island development states?
Thank you. Prime Minister?
Right. I would say that the Minister for Sustainable Development would be in a better position to answer that question, or in a good position. You can, right, you can do both. Yes.
Thank you for the question, and thank you, Prime Minister. I will do my update. In the updates, I will directly respond to your question. The Ministry of Sustainable Development, Environment, Climate Action, Constituency Empowerment, which also has responsibility for solid waste management, cooperation, and parks and beaches, is celebrating Sustainability Month this month of November in partnership in particular with the Ministry of Energy, which is celebrating Energy Month, and the Ministry of Tourism, which is also celebrating Tourism Month. And our partnership is based on our shared goal of the transformation of St. Kitts and Nevis to a sustainable island state. And so our ministries are partnering on some critical areas such as energy, responding to our plastic recycling program, and also sharing the message of the key pillars for development. Importantly, this week, Solid Waste Management Corporation is celebrating with church service at the Antioch Baptist Church, where 3 of our workers were recognized by the church, a key partner for their long-standing service or their work and commitment towards environmental management. Additionally, on Thursday, we are partnering with the Ministry of Education, the Taiwan ICDF program, as well as the Solid Waste Management Corporation and the Department of Environment, to recognize the students who were very excellent in the recycling challenge that we ran through and with the Ministry of Education. So I invite our media partners to continue sharing our Sustainability Month initiatives. We always are grateful for your partnership, and we recognize that the message about sustainable practices, the circular economy, and getting to a zero waste position cannot be done without your indelible support. As it relates to work abroad, the Ministry of Environment does quite and sustainable development. We are oftentimes tasked with work abroad, be it conferences, sessions, or training opportunities, and as it relates to UNFCCC Conference of Parties or COP28 to be held in the United Arab Emirates. It's a signal moment, not just for St. Kitts and Nevis, for SIDS, or for the region, but globally. This conference is very critical, in particular for two reasons: the creation of the Loss and Damage Fund and our global stocktake, which is directly linked to our agreements in the Paris Agreement, which speaks to how we report on our global greenhouse gas reductions and also where we are as a world in terms of addressing that 1.5 to stay alive. This year, again, the Ministry of Environment is collaborating with the Ministry of Energy to participate in COP. We recognize that the biggest conference around climate change requires more than the participation of the Ministry of Environment. In particular, COP's energy transition, which speaks to how we move from a fossil fuel dependent economy to justly transitioning to renewable sources. And the just here speaks to justice. How do we ensure that countries are able to survive the transition, and also how the most vulnerable amongst us can also benefit from the transition to non-fossil fuel-based energy sources. We recognize also that one of the priorities for the region and for SIDS in particular is the capitalization of the Loss and Damage Fund. A major outcome last year was the establishment of the Loss and Damage Fund, led by AOSIS, under the leadership of Antigua and Barbuda, Sir Malwin Joseph, the Minister of Environment there. For an entire year, our countries have been negotiating. We've been attending meetings, ratifying, discussing, and basically arguing for the capitalization, putting money in the fund and making that money available to countries which are responding to damages due to climate change and climate variables, be they droughts, which are slow onset events, or hurricanes, like the experiences we've had in the past weeks. We have reached a point where, yes, in most recent deliberations, the breaking news for us in that committee of the Loss and Damage Fund has agreed on recommendations to send to COP about the capitalization of the fund. And one of the agreements there was whether or not the World Bank should house the Loss and Damage Fund. It's about access. Are SIDS able to access the Loss and Damage Fund without having money? If there is a Category 4 hurricane next week or whenever, can St. Kitts and Nevis apply to that fund without having to complete 15 projects which are 100 pages long, which makes it very difficult? That is our priority. So we're very happy that we've reached this milestone. It has taken lots of negotiations, and this is really not the end. The end is when we go to COP28 to negotiate. And the negotiations are from our technical experts in the Ministry of Environment and Energy. They are training nonstop all year to ensure that the wording out of the outcome for COP supports position for small island developing states like St. Kitts and Nevis. Additionally, a critical part of the negotiation is how ministers of energy Ministers of Foreign Affairs and Ministers of Environment and heads of state, our Prime Minister, speak to the entire body of 6,000 plus delegates. Every word that is said at COP contributes to the final outcome and eventually contributes to how we access monies. So this year, I'm very happy to announce that again, without leaning heavily on government resources, we have been able to secure sponsorship for our youth partners through UNFFC. We have been able to secure funding for ministerial participation along with their technical advisors. We have been able to secure the support for the participation of heads of state and heads of ministries without leaning on the governments. Is the transformation of St. Kitts and Nevis to a sustainable island state. Our St. Kitts Pavilion, with the support of the Republic of China and Taiwan, will allow us to showcase how we want investments and priorities for our countries for food security, energy security, water security, sustainable industries, sustainable settlements, the circular economy, and social protection and health. As it relates to additional funding for SIDS, your question, again, this is the final part of it. We have been working nonstop all year to increase the access to funding for SIDS. So in August, when our delegation participated in the International Jeff Conference, one of the priorities and what was celebrated for St. Kitts and Nevis is our lead negotiation in ensuring that the Global Biodiversity Fund, St. Kitts and Nevis, through the work of Ms. Laverne Quealy at the Ministry of Finance, who was the Jeff focal point then, ensured that for all SIDS globally, there was an increased access of funds, and that was what St. Kitts and Nevis did because we participated in those sessions. So we have been using all of the COPs to push for more funding, and it has been made available. And in the next 3 weeks, the Minister of Energy and the Minister of Finance will also make some critical updates about additional funds that we have been able to access because of the ministry's work abroad. As it relates to, and finally, as it relates to Christmas, we're very happy that in our push for circular economy, for zero waste, that the Ministry of Environment, Parks and Beaches, Solid Waste, Constituency Empowerment, Environmental Health, and the Ministry of Health will be partnering for our second community cleanse, expanded and intended stakeholder partnership. This is what we want. We are going to be working with our communities again to ensure that we clean up, but it is beyond just cleaning up at Christmas. It's the push for continued behavior change to ensure that zero waste is possible in the future. As it relates to land sales and land, I'm really happy to announce that we are continuing our Thursday afternoon regularization program for 2022. And despite what some may say, when you come to the ministry, we take your documentation, we listen to you, we attempt to regularize, and no one leaves the ministry disenfranchised or disappointed. While some may come feeling very nervous, some may cry, and I've been there and I sat, it's extremely overwhelming for some of the persons who visit us. Empowerment through land ownership is critical. We have already resumed our land distribution program, and we have a very special professionals program which has been done in partnership with the St. Kitts Nevis Anguilla National Bank and their own mortgage program. You would have seen that last week Friday at the launch in the square, and continuing our close collaboration with NHC so that we can make lands available for all of the persons who want one of the 2,400 homes. The ministry is continuing its transformation process towards a sustainable island state. We're happy for the partnership. I'm really thankful for the question because it allowed me to just talk and talk and talk about COP, which is my passion, climate change. So apologies if I was very long-winded, but I'm very grateful for the question and happy to have been able to provide the update from the ministry. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Dr. Joyelle Clark. And just to add, Dr. Clark, Minister Clark, Mr. Darion Edme, the Director of the Department of Environment, and Mr. Ron Boddy, the Director of Urban Development Unit. They will be on In Focus tomorrow, Wednesday, November 8th at 1 p.m., and we'll be sharing more information on building momentum towards sustainability. At this point, we will have the other ministers who will be sharing their updates. Prime Minister. I am so sorry, Minister Duggins. Yes, there will.
Irrigation project. Now, under this project, assistance to farmers to help and improve the efficiency of water use, because as we know, water is a scarce resource. And it's also one of the more challenging areas for farmers long periods of drought as an effect of climate change. And so we thought to be able to grow more food effectively and efficiently, we had to address the water challenge. Farmers were given water tanks to help harvest and store water over a period of time. They were also given components such as fittings and drip lines that would help to distribute the water more efficiently and effectively to crops, which will waste less water. And they were also given ground cover so that they could retain the moisture in the soil, which means you have the soil needing less water for the crops to grow. All of which adds to the efficiency of our water. But we also recognize that if we create this, it sort of creates an oasis. Because if you have crops growing better now, you have an oasis in time of drought. Our biggest challenge has been the monkeys and feral animals. So we also issued fencing to these farmers with protective mechanisms such as electrical circuits to help deter feral animals. All of this was put together as a package so that our production can increase. And we saw the first tranche of farmers receiving that package as a part of World Food Day celebration. We also went ahead and introduced into the schools again some farm materials and sessions of discussion, because we recognize we can't move forward with agriculture in a positive and productive way if the next generation isn't 100% bought in. And so we had discussion with students, and we actually delivered farm supplies and materials to a number of schools. All of this was, one, in a part of celebrating World Food Day, but also as a part of our entire agenda of reducing our food import bill. But I want to flip that as well as I address the farmers' buy-in to a different perspective of the 25 by 25 agenda. What we are really asking in the 25 by 25 is for us as a nation to increase food production domestically, 5% of what we import. That number is 200 million of import. 25% of that sits at around 50 million. And this is ballpark figure, because it's actually 197 point. But rounded off at 200, you're talking about increasing productivity to 50 million, thereabout. When we look at that, it really says that our farmers now can set a target of producing up to $50 million worth of produce. If you tell me one farmer that sees that as a negative, I'll question why. Because if you as a farmer have a market now, a dedicated market of up to $50 million to partake in, I don't see any farmer that will say no to that. I don't know if you know one. But agriculture is committed to supporting that all the way through. And we're expanding storage capacity because we recognize with additional food, you need additional storage. We are also expanding our markets. Discussions are ongoing with a number of entities to see how they could take more local produce. And we've gone a step further because we recognize that some items we may produce more than the domestic demand, maybe, in some items. And I could tell you that discussions are also going on with regional entities and countries to take some of our produce once there's excess. So how far are we along the way? We are moving on quite nicely. And 2024, I think, will see a huge leap in that, because we are also introducing a financial model that I think the agricultural sector would find extremely revolutionary. but I'll speak more to that on a later date. And that will be, I hope, an answer to your question holistically. If not, you could indicate. Okay, great. And I'll move on then to talking about some of my other ministries and departments. I am also responsible for the Department of Sports, and under that department, we would have seen a huge announcement just this week, well, last week into this week, when WIPO announced that Global First, St. Kitts, first in the world to institute the IP in Sports project. Now, I want to speak to this because I remember sitting with the executives from WIPO prior, and I remember being a bit frank with them about making intellectual property more practical. And one of the things I said to them across my ministries, I would like to see how intellectual property could really add in the various sectors: small business, sports, agriculture, creative economy. And so when they came back with this project and they said St. Kitts would be the first, I was extremely delighted. Because here it is, a very practical approach to intellectual property and its benefits to our people. And they started with sports, and they started. But these are the things that we as ministers, we are here to do. We are here to bring real results to our people through frank dialogues on what our people's needs are. And so I was happy to witness that. And I want to give credit to all the persons involved, the Intellectual Property Office and the head, J.N. Williams. I also want to give credit to the Attorney General and the Prime Minister as well, who would have been a part of a lot of these discussions. But outside of that, we also have quite a bit happening in sports. We've seen the success of our volleyball team recently, having won the silver medal. We've seen the success of our football team this year, of our netball team in the recent Clash of the Saints tournament. We've also seen the phenomenal work of Jazara Claxton and her in cricket and what she has been doing. More recently in the Pan Am Games, we have clinched the bronze medal in the 200 meters. But I also want to talk about lesser publicized sports, swimming. And the SKN swimming team has been doing wonders this year, and they're traveling to St. Lucia this week to compete, and I want to wish them well. Because you see, St. Kitts and Nevis have quite a bit of talent in sports. We've seen Kim Collins dominate the world, and we've seen our athletes all around the world dominate. And the Ministry of Sports stands, well, the Department of Sports within the Ministry of Sports and Creative Economy stands with these athletes and makes sure that we put whatever support we can, given the constraints and resources, to ensure that our athletes have the potential to do their very best. And so, for me, I'm happy to announce what is happening there in sports. But I also want to take one moment here to talk about, because you see, for years, we have not had active sports programs in our schools. And I want to say that one of the things coming into office, recognizing that, it was a mandate that by this year we have to have these programs reinstituted into schools. Happy to say that a few weeks ago we launched the football tournament back into primary and high schools. And this tournament was sponsored by the St. Kitts Nevis and Guyana National Bank and the Jones Group of companies. And I'm happy that that is going very well. In fact, right now, the number of persons that turn out to these games actually is quite commendable. So to the parents and supporters of our young athletes, I say continue to show that level of support. It means a lot to the athletes, and it means a lot to the sporting fraternity and our people. So again, thank you to the parents that support these initiatives. I won't stay too long because, again, we are crushed for time, but I also have to touch briefly on two other areas. One, the creative economy, as that falls under my purview as well, to say that we have launched our mural project, and you would have seen the first one being done on the walls of the Newtown playing field, where the artists chose to celebrate our national heroes. Now, under this project, we are going to be painting murals around the country. And what we have done with our artists, we have gathered them and put them through a series of training sessions where they learned about our history, our culture, the people of the want to paint the murals. And that would then lend to their own creativity, where they would then in turn use that information and create murals to depict the essence of each community. And so the one that we started with, the artist chose to depict our national heroes on the walls of the Newtown playing field. And I invite everyone to take a peek, because I think it's an outstanding mural that was as an initial one. So that's one part that we have been doing in the creative economy. Outside of that, we have also launched a Creative ID and the Creative Arts Fund, and I want to implore all of our creatives to register for the Creative ID and register for the fund. A number of persons have, but I want to say it publicly, because at the end of the day, a lot of our creatives and others say we don't know that the fund has been launched, and you can register to be part of it, where you could get up to $15,000 to assist with your creative. This is a call to all creatives to register with the creative economy. We also did the songwriting training and workshop. Writers come in and assist our local songwriters with their craft, and I think that went very, very well, but I won't stay too long on that, as I want to touch on small business. Now, we continue to do a series of training at the Ministry of Small Business and Entrepreneurship. We have endeavored every month to host our young entrepreneurs with some level of training, be it bookkeeping, marketing, and a host of different topics, because we believe it's essential for them to professional training. But we have also launched our 40/40 booster grant, and we have issued that grant to the businesses that were chosen as successful businesses for that booster grant. Now, those 40 businesses had to comply with a number of criteria. One, everyone had to have a licensed business. Without a business license, you are automatically disqualified. Two, everyone had to present a business plan. Without that, you were automatically disqualified. And so the 40 businesses, the only 40 with all the components, but it was only for 40 businesses. And so for the other businesses, we are encouraging you to continue with the ministry, because we have been directing persons towards additional funding. The Prime Minister spoke of the 2.5% loan at the development bank, and businesses in acquiring that at the bank. So again, the small business ministry is open to all entrepreneurs. And one way or another, we want to help you with training, with funding, we want to help you with that business development plan, and we really want to be that one-stop shop, that you walk in with an idea. We help you get your license, help you get your plan, help you access funding, monitor and evaluate your business, and push you towards success. This is the whole idea of the ministry, and so far, so good. Now, I also want to talk about the ministry as far as the future, because one of the things that we are hoping and intending to do with the ministry in the future is to ensure that all of our young entrepreneurs have access to ready markets. And so as we catalog what we seem to be most interested in, we have been going out internationally, regionally, to find markets for their products. Now, this is an endeavor that is not open, because you have to find markets that these products will resonate with, so that you don't have them on the shelves and not moving. But we're working at that. And so far, I believe some of our entrepreneurs have been benefiting from that. I know Ms. Elliott, with her produce, she has been one of the recipients of some of these gestures, and quite beneficial to her, as L'Oreal, I think I pronounced that correctly, and her products have been doing very well. And we want to expand that to a number of other entrepreneurs. And so from a standpoint as minister, I have been working at all levels of my ministries And I want to say to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, thank you again for the opportunity to serve. The people of constituency number 4 in particular who would have elected me to be here. But I want to say to my constituents within the ministries themselves as well, farmers and sportsmen, creatives, that you have a soldier that's fighting with you and for you. And every table that I sit at, there is one thing at the forefront of my mind, to come out with the best result for our people, because I believe we deserve only the best. And so thank you all again, and I'm happy to share an update of all that we've been doing.
Thank you, Honorable Samuel Duggins. I invite Honorable Eileen Phillip to give her update.
Thank you very much, Press Secretary. Good afternoon to everyone who's present and listening. I will be brief. Issues with regards to the Ministry of Social Development and Gender Affairs, I would take the opportunity, even though no question was asked specifically about it, to just update what is happening in terms of the plans for the continued development and improvements in the Poverty Alleviation Program. So we are currently servicing over 5,500 people on the Poverty Alleviation Program. To date, since last payments, we anticipate that we'll be maintaining those numbers into the end of this fiscal year, that is towards the end of December. As we continue to work on restructuring the program, we have sought assistance, some technical expertise from some social policy and programming consultants from UNICEF. UNICEF granted us some technical assistance, and just over 2 weeks ago, we had some consultants on island doing some stakeholder consultations with our social service delivery team. So that's the team at social services in St. Kitts as well as in Nevis. They would have beneficiaries to the program, and so they have been assisting the ministry with the information we need in terms of collecting data and providing some guidance and recommendations as to how we can continue with the improvement of the program. I would take the opportunity right now to also anything that may be out there about persons being removed or targeted to be removed from the program. We, in fact, have not been doing that. The only removals that take place is based on the verification process that takes place monthly in terms of checking to see who may be deceased, who may be obviously need to be removed so that the benefit can be attributed to someone else, and also when we do verifications to identify whether households are actually receiving more than the required eligibility criteria, which is if you're receiving more than $3,000 per month. So those are really the only two reasons that any kind of removals are taking place, and that's just part of the verification process to ensure that we can improve the integrity of the program. As we go forward, we have been actually making sure we assess how our case management has been going in terms of one of the new things that we have instituted with the program. And I'm actually very pleased to say that just last week, Friday, we would have had a graduation ceremony for a number of persons who are unemployed on the program who were responsive to case management and decided to participate in a 3-week job training program. These were persons who were identified as unemployed and who have been receiving the benefit, and they would have graduated from a 3-week training workshop that was held in collaboration with the Department of Employment and Labor. These persons, it was just about 30 persons who would have graduated. They would have received some training on resume development, job hunting, interview skills. They would have had sessions with HR just about workers' rights and what you can expect in terms of employment and labor rights. And so I want to congratulate those persons and also thank those who have been working in terms of delivering the case management. And so this is one of the things that we have been evaluating to see what has been successful with the program, and I'm pleased to say that this is one of those things. Also, we've we've had sessions with Small Business Development Center for persons who are on the program who have expressed interest in business development and entrepreneurship. So I'd also like to make sure I give a shout out to another partner with the ministry, who is the Ministry of Small Business Development and Entrepreneurship. And so those are some positives, and so we're just kind of collecting the data to see what has been working well and what we want to continue, and how we want to also just manage moving forward for the new year those who may not be as responsive to case management, and how we can continue to support persons to become empowered throughout the process of receiving this benefit. With regards to other ministries and departments, I just want to make some announcements. We are currently in the month of November, and the Department of Gender Affairs has been hosting a number of events in observance of International Men's Day, which is on the 19th of November. And usually they host different activities. This weekend, they'll be hosting a buster pots competition where we have men who will be cooking on, I believe, just coal pots. I think they're doing goat is the item that they're cooking. So I want to encourage members of the public to support this event that's being hosted by the Department of Gender Affairs in honor of International Men's Day. We will also be having the flagship annual International Men's Day Award ceremony. This is being done in partnership with the Department of Gender Affairs in Nevis, and so the ceremony will actually be hosted in Nevis this year. There'll be one ceremony to honor all of the great men across the Federation. In relation to the Ministry of Youth Empowerment, Aging and Disabilities, November is also Youth Month, and so there have been a number of activities that are planned for Youth Month. Just last week, Friday, we would have held the Youth Art exhibit at the Ministry Secretariat on Keon Street, and so that was quite successful. We actually had a number of submissions from our high school students who submitted paintings. This is also part of the effort to see how we can nurture creatives in our schools, and so you can stop by the Secretariat, which is on the 3rd floor of the Cable Building, to see those paintings. They will be up for the duration of the month. And I just want to encourage persons to just pop by and check it out. The paintings are for sale, so we will be compensating students. So if you see a painting that you like, we encourage you to purchase it. That money would go directly to the artist who created the painting. I also want to make a plug as well. Just last month, we would have completed the month of older persons for seniors. Unfortunately, we had to reschedule our seniors prom, which was our highly anticipated finale event for our seniors. It was rescheduled, and that will actually be taking place this Friday at the Marriott from 6 p.m. So that's our seniors prom. It is happening since it had to be postponed due to the passing of Tropical Storm Tammy. But that's happening this Friday from 6 p.m. So seniors, we're looking forward to that. I will also just make a plug to say next week, as part of Youth Month, I will be taking a caravan tour to visit schools to engage with young people. So our youth in schools can look forward to an engagement in terms of with the Minister for Youth Month. So I'm quite looking forward to that. And I would like to encourage the general public to please check out the Facebook social media pages of the Youth Department to see what other activities are taking place for this month. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Iselene Phillip. Honorable Wilkin, Attorney General, will now give us update.
Good afternoon, everyone. I will speak briefly on the Attorney General's Office and the Ministry of Justice and Legal Affairs. The two high courts, civil and criminal, and the judges' chambers now operate comfortably from the Charles Armory Building at the Cenotaph, Fort Lands Bastille since September 2023. And the Registry of the High Court continues to operate temporarily from the Sir Tapley Seaton Annex at the East Independence Square, Bastille, St. Kitts. The new Director of Public Prosecutions, Mr. Adley Smith, is in office, and I heard from his testimonial at church that he won his first case. We wish him the very best in that very important constitutional office as he hits the ground running. The medium-term plan with respect to the courts is to return the Sir Lee Elmore Judicial and Legal Services Complex, the full operation of the 2 high courts, as well as the 2 judges' chambers and the High Court Registry. We are in the process of finalizing the request for proposals to get a fulsome plan to have that building fully operational. The story with that building is that from the start of construction, decades ago, there was a water issue in the basement. As I've said in the past, we may need to condemn the basement, but we are trying to get professional advice as to how to fix that building completely, repair the roof, change windows, remove the internal walls, and eliminate the mold problem that occurred in that building, and we're going to try to do that over the 2024. We're also engaging in substantive criminal reform, criminal justice reform, which will involve discussions on the elimination of paper committals in the Magistrates' Court, reducing the number of jurors that sit on criminal trials, introducing judge-only trials for certain offenses, and tabling plea legislation, all to create a stronger and faster criminal justice system where persons charged with offenses can get a resolution of their matters between 1 and 2 the longer periods that exist now. Some of our neighbors in the Caribbean have an average time on remand of 10 years. We do not want to get there. We want to go in the opposite direction. While I'm in this office, is to ensure that there's swift justice for all of our people. We've also spent tens of millions of dollars in persons who spent time on remand for too long of a time. That is a problem with the public purse, and we want to eliminate that problem so that money can be diverted towards beneficial projects in creating the sustainable island state. Some of the proposals and the lessons that we'll learn from the CCJ Academy conference that I attended a couple of weeks ago in Barbados will be brought into force by summer 2024. Also, in the 2024 budget, we will provide for the launch of something that I'm very proud of, and I hope that the people of this country are very proud of it, the Access to Justice Agency, AJASKN, which will have 4 divisions. The legal aid division, where persons who cannot afford commercial legal rates can attend and be provided with top-class legal assistance in the Magistrates' Court and High Court, civil and family divisions. The Public Defenders Division, where lawyers are hired by the state to represent persons accused with crimes so that they can receive proper legal assistance at little to no cost to them. The Alternative Dispute Resolution Division, where a trained mediator or trained mediators will try to resolve legal issues between persons before they go to court. So persons can hopefully get them resolved in an amicable matter. And on the instructions of the Prime Minister, who is very strong about this, the Restorative Justice Division, where officers and volunteers will go into the various communities to ensure that there's a repair of any harm caused by any incidents that occurred in the communities or any criminal actions or ill feelings. For example, was convicted of a break and entry in their neighbor's house. That person serves 2 years in jail. They have to return to their home. We're going to have officers who are going to meet with the victims, meet with the persons who are returning into the communities, and try to resolve the issues between them. And that also will help to stop the recidivism, where persons who come back out commit crimes again, because we're going to encourage them to be welcome back in their society. They've paid their dues, and the persons who are the victims can have some sort of time to speak and let the persons who committed the crimes know how it affected them, and we can move forward as a peaceful people. With respect to the land registry, we now have 2 experienced land registry professionals, and I'm informed that things are already speeding up. We want to ensure that land titles are processed in days, not months and years. 15 persons, citizens and residents, have anonymously submitted their proposals, their proposed design of the new Ministry of Justice and Legal Affairs headquarters to be constructed on Bay Road, St. Kitts, Bastia, St. Kitts. The decision committee will meet to choose the top 3 designs to be presented to Cabinet anonymously as well for the winner of the $20,000 prize to be determined hopefully by the end of November. And I must make a pitch to our people: stop littering. I just received a video from the Minister of Responsibility for Sustainable Development and the Solid Waste Management Corporation of a woman through the cane range behind Skellig with a box of garbage and just dumping it into the high grass there. This is a serious problem. I recently exercised on the top of Timothy Hill, and I looked over, and this is our most important tourism picture. I looked over the side of it, and I saw containers of food thrown over there. Obviously, people went up there at night and threw their food out their windows. We have a little problem. People need to respect the cleanliness of our country. People need to have respect for themselves, and it is illegal for you to dump items and throw them out your window and throw them into the bush. It is not good, and we want to end that. And I know that the minister with responsibility for solid waste is very keen on that. As she mentioned earlier, the cleanup. So I need to make a plea to our people to obey the law and stop littering. But I'd like to end on good news. Prime Minister, the Attorney General's office has saved the government $5 million. That is 90% of our budget for claims against the government, all because we're winning cases that are winnable and we are fighting cases that should be fought. When I entered the office, I told the lawyers in the office that we are going to defend the people's purse. And this is the rubber hitting the road in that regard. I want to thank the lawyers in the office, the Solicitor General, for listening and determining that they can join in that new policy where we are going to save the people's money. So that money now can be diverted into other budgetary areas of our country. So I'm very proud of that. And Prime Minister, as Minister of Finance, I'm sure is happy to hear that he has approximately $5 million that he can put into other programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Garth Wilkin. Prime Minister, Honorable Dr. Terrance Drew, the floor is open for you.
Yes, thank you. I know that the ministers have spoken. Most of the questions were directed at me, but I'm happy they were able to give their very important updates. With respect to NHC and housing, the minister is not here, but just to say that NHC has, let me just give you the update here. I think our people want to hear it. Good. So NHC has 25 properties under construction presently. Demolition of the West Street has been concluded to make way for the modern affordable apartments, which will add to the number. East Street development set to begin next week. That will also add to the number. And East Coast housing has resumed and will continue model homes by first week of December. So the model homes under the 2,400 plan has been, they have started, and therefore we will be able to see them by December. So just to say that that investment has begun its work. With respect to energy, I think I spoke to that as well, water, foreign policy. So the ministers who are not here, I think I was able to address and the issue of tourism as far as the minister responsible is concerned, minimum wage and so forth. So we have touched basically all the ministries. So I just want to wrap up quickly that I am immensely proud with the significant work that has been done. I think there's a static in this mic, seems that way. I think this is much better. I just turn it down. Okay, good. Right, this is much better. Right, so to say to our people of St. Kitts and Nevis that this government, your administration is working tirelessly hard. I want to thank the cabinet for its hard work and dedication. As I've said before, running a government is not easy work, it is challenging. However, we are up to the challenge. And we have been navigating through these difficult times, this is what we call the poly-crisis, to help them to realize their dreams. I want to say that part of what we'll be doing is concentrating even more on wealth building, and we have a number of initiatives which we will bring forward, new initiatives never done before in St. Kitts and Nevis, and from what I know, has never been done in the Caribbean. We are very, very pointed to try and to implement new policies, different policies to transform our people's lives. But before I close, just to update you, we have bought a new CT scan machine, 128 slice. We are going to start some work on JNF. We'll be doing the AC units in the medical ward to start. We'll be dealing with the roof. We are going to be partnering with the Republic of China, Taiwan, to resolve the roof issue, as they have a technology that we want to employ here to end with the leaky roof at the JNF hospital once and for all. As you know, we continue to push forward. Our renal transplant program is almost completed and be ready to present to our people. We want to have renal transplant here in St. Kitts and Nevis, and to start within the next few months once donors are available. And we'll launch it, advertise it, and promote it so that our people can have access to transplant services as well. And so as we continue to build out the ministry, we know that there are challenges. Nonetheless, we will continue to improve as we go along. And to finally say, we are finalizing the aspect to deal with the construction of the new hospital, and we intend to start that construction in the new year that is coming. And therefore, I would like to say to our people that we continue to work hard. We can plans are really people-centered, and so that we can create the best St. Kitts and Nevis for all of us that is possible. Thank you for joining me and the rest of your hard-working cabinet. Take care.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister and the Ministers of Government, for engaging with the media and continued engagement with the media, for hosting this month's press conference, updating the Federation on our major developments. Thank you once again to the media houses for coming out today. We always appreciate your collaboration, and also expressing thanks to our sign language interpreter, Mrs. Lanicia Collins-Williams, for always doing such a masterful job of keeping our ministers' information, keeping our deaf community updated and informed on the ministers' information on the developments within our federation. And to our viewers and listeners, thank you once again for tuning in. Do have a pleasant day. Until next time.